Nigam Sahay is a well-known chef, author of some amazing cookbooks, and also a popular TV personality. And today she is here with us to talk about her latest book, A Sip in Time, and the entire journey which has culminated into what she is today. A very warm welcome to you, Pallavi.
Thank you.
So, Pallavi, I read your book, Bhojpuri Kitchen end to end, and it did not seem like it has not been written by someone who is not born and brought up in Bihar. So, how did you manage to bring that fineness, that perfection into writing it?
I lived with my parents-in-law. After my wedding, we lived in a joint family for 4 years, and we made multiple trips in a month, honestly, to Bihar all the time. Like after 4 days of my wedding, I went to Hazaribagh for Kul Devta ki puja just after 4 days of wedding, and we stayed there. And honestly, I was always a curious person for culture and for food, especially to know the culture through the food. So so I always, whenever I was there, I was always like curious and inquisitive. I was always asking, oh, how did you make this? How did you make that? And so yeah, and I loved every bit of my time spent with the family. So maybe that got into me and came out in the book.
I can see from the book that you have learned a lot from your mother-in-law. You know, a lot of her recipes, her tips have been incorporated in the book. So, what's so different about being a Bihari Bahu?
It is different because for me, because I'm raised in Madhya Pradesh. So it is in lot of ways it is similar, but also in a lot of ways it is different. The culture is different, the food ways are different, and they want to maintain it that way. They love to have it their way. So it wasn't difficult but I had to learn a lot. Their food flavors are a bit defined and suiting to their own palate, you know. So yeah, it was a bit different for me. And we hardly make masala pastes. And my mom-in-law and all the other my extended families, they always make paste of the masala and then use it.
Yes.
My mom always tempered the oil with the whole spices, and then this is how we got the flavors of the spices. But there's a tradition of making a masala paste.
So, Pallavi, did you always want to become a chef, or it happened at some moment of realization? So, tell us about your entire journey.
I was always in love with cooking, and I wasn't even aware of it, that I love it so much. I mean, I was not even focusing on it. But now when I recall it, I always was very curious about when somebody presented me with a very good flavor, good tasting dish. I would always go in the kitchen and ask for the recipe, and I would always ask about the methods and everything. And very early, I remember we had a tenant, and he made kache aam ka chutney, and I remembered, like, I wrote down the whole recipe of kache aam ka chutney, and I was sitting next to him while he was making the chutney, and I remember that I wrote down the whole recipe. So and even in the hostel where we were studying, I was the person who was given the responsibility to cook for even we are celebrating, for example, New Year's together. We could not go home, or we are celebrating someone's birthday. So I was the one who was always like, okay, I'll cook, I'll make this, I'll make that. So yeah, that time I didn't even thought that things will go this way, that I'll do. Now I've done a culinary course. I worked in the Grand Hyatt, and so after this, what happened, that I did an economics course, because as you know, in the families, they are like, I mean, do some solid course, don't go for IHM. Although ladies in my family did said that please let her do the hotel management. She wants to do it. I tried to pursue my father, but he didn't allow it. So I did my economics, and then I met my husband and we got married. And after getting married, I worked in an insurance company for around a year. And then I was like, it was too much of pressure. So I left it. And then while I was at home, my husband said that, like when I was working, even then I used to just think about the recipes and what am I going to cook after going home and buying the ingredients and everything. So yeah, everyone already, and even I got to know that I love cooking a lot. So after I left my job, finally my husband, I was not doing anything, so I was very much free. So my husband said, why don't you pursue this? So I went to Italy, I did my course, and then I came back. I did a training in Grand Hyatt. Meanwhile, while we got transferred to Muscat, and there in Muscat, I wrote the recipes, the Bhojpuri Kitchen, because I had all the time in the world. So I wrote the Bhojpuri Kitchen, and then I got offered this TV show. So I did the TV show. Amma Superstar is the name, with the ZTV, and then I wrote the second book, A Sip in Time. So this is the journey.
So what was the idea behind writing A Sip in Time? Indians love for chai.
Yeah, our love for chai too. My family for chai. Um, my So all the books you will now say that it is my post-marriage concepts, because after on the first day of my on the first day in my marital house, my mom-in-law asked me, what will you drink? And they were sipping on the Darjeeling first flush. So I said, a new bride in a new home can't really say, oh, I will have my lemon juice with honey, a little bit of honey in it. So I just said, I'll have what you guys are having. They were sipping on Darjeeling first flush, and I sipped it and I loved it. So since then, it is unending journey of like teas and tea, and they are in love with teas. So like 5 times a day, like 3 times in the morning and then 2 times in the evening. We love chai. So
Sweet but without sugar, I have to ask.
yeah, without sugar actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
But then later it became without sugar.
Yeah, initially it is always with sugar, then gradually then you realize, then the realization dawns upon you. True. So we have that Bihari and chai connection, and of course it's loved unanimously all over India. So also Pallavi, like tea time snacks, there are many baking dishes there, many things that you have baked. So Indians aren't very good at baking, unless you're a pro. We know how to fry our pakoras, we know how to make our bhajiyas, but are there some 5 basic tips that you would want normal people like us to follow, who are not very good at baking? Because one problem that I faced is I always face when I see a book, and I'm sure our readers are also facing, is that instant yeast, dry yeast, all these things, so what are these wild yeast? So what's the difference between these, and what should be and when you're using instant yeast, should you immediately use it, or should you wait for some time? Should you give some time?
Always for it to be hot. You must always, the water should be tepid, it shouldn't be too hot, and you must always like stir it a little. First give it time to froth, and then just stir it a little so that it gets dissolved properly. Also what happens is, whenever, especially when we are making bread, we add salt at the same time we are adding the yeasted water. So what we should do is that first mix the salt properly in the bread, and always add a pinch of sugar. It must be there in the recipe always. Always add a pinch of sugar to the yeast in the water. Because what happens is that yeast is sleeping. When he wakes up, it needs energy, it needs food. So the sugar is the instant energy. So you make the yeast strong by adding some sugar. So when that yeast is added and never add oil to the water, little bit of oil because it seals the yeast. So a little bit of oil in the flour, and then you crumb it with the hands, if the recipe specifies, and then you add the yeast in the water, little by little, and then you just knead your dough. Never overwork it.
Once you knead the dough, then do you want, should it rest for a while, or you should wait for it to fluff up?
But there are few breads like soda breads, which are instant breads, but always it should rest for a while because, the gluten gets overworked, the protein in the flour, it gets overworked. And when anything, even you and me, if we are overworked, we'll never be able to give the best results. All of us, even the dough, we need to rest so that we can give the good result. Same way the dough needs to rest so that the gluten in it can rest. Otherwise, we'll get a very chewy texture, very not good. Yeah.
So at a time, when there's a deluge of online content, videos, video recipes and everything, do you think cookbooks are losing their charm, or we still need them?
Well, while YouTube content and digital content has its own place now in the society, in people's life, so the book is something you return to when you want to.
True.
When you want that calm, when you want that peace, you return to the book at your own wish, right? And when you want a nice recipe, a writer, an author that you trust, you want to return to the book, you use the book then. And YouTube videos are like, acha bhi banana hai, kuch jaldi se, like just see the recipe, just use it and just just finish it off. But a book takes you through the recipe slowly. You also get connected, you listen to read the story, the proses. But I think the book is something that you read in the peaceful. It makes you more peaceful and give you a good recipe, more authentic recipe, because whosoever is writing, I shouldn't, anyways, whosoever is writing is putting their heart and soul in the book. So yeah, and I think digital content has its own relevance.
My next question to you is, so curry is an integral part of our cuisine. So every day in India we make curries in our lunch and dinner. So but not everyone is a good cook. So what are those 5 basic tips that can salvage any kind of curry? And I know it's a very generalized question, but there must be some tips and tricks that chefs know to make the perfect curry.
It's curry is actually people think that it's a tough thing. There is my state of mind in which it is perceived as a tough thing, but believe me, it is the easiest and most fulfilling and soulful food to eat. All you have to take care of is just saute the onions properly till it is nicely caramelized. That's it. Once the onions are done, the curry is sorted. Sometimes the recipe demands the onion to be sauteed till it's pink. Just give it those 5 minutes, saute till pink. If the recipe is saying the saute till it is properly caramelized, it will take 15 minutes. But once you've done that, only 15 minutes, then it is if the onions are done properly, it is the curry is sorted for you. Never overuse the masalas, especially the dry masala powders which we use. I was also in a habit of adding 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of coriander powder, because my mom always did from the intuition, right? So I also added it very much early days of my cooking. But then I learned it that only 1 teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoon of coriander powder, which is the most used masalas, by the way, so is enough. 1/4 teaspoon of haldi is enough. So never overuse the masalas is one thing. And oil should be hot enough if you're tempering, and you should not check it again and again. If you have to let it simmer for 15-20 minutes, allow it to simmer for 15-20 minutes. So these are my tips. This is how I will make my own good curry.
Wow, really some nice things to learn from you. So my last question to you, Pallavi, is that you have already written on Bhojpuri cuisine, then you have written about tea time snacks. So what's next? A book on Madhya Pradesh food? What should we expect?
Which I'm working on, and let's see. But it will be in the daily context of modern life. These days we want to have food, but we are losing the relevance of homemade food. So I just want to bring that forth, that everyone at the end of the busy day can get can provide food to their family, can put food on their table. And it's not just about putting food on their table, it also gives you immense satisfaction. And you may not be able to go on those tours and vacations all the time, but this small happiness you can manifest on the daily basis. So this is very important for the overall well-being of a family, to be honest, to have this pleasure, to be able to put food at the end of the busy day. Even man or woman, I'm not saying anyone can do it. Maybe few days a husband can cook, few days wife can cook. So so that's what I'm trying to bring forth. So that's what I'm trying to convey, that okay, enjoy the modern life, have all the fun, also cook a little bit.
We'll be waiting for it. So thank you so much, Pallavi. It was a pleasure connecting with you. It was long due and we finally met. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Lovely talking to you, Smita.